Welcome to Tech Talk with Jared Yellin. My NASDAQ community, I am so excited to have you meet our very special guest. Dan Beck stands to democratize finance. And listen, you know me, I want to democratize everything. I want to create access to tech, to finance, to education, to clean water. I mean, I just want to give people more opportunity than they have at this point in their life. And what Dan is doing in the space of finance is going to light you up. And I'm excited for you to learn more so that maybe you actually incorporate this platform into your business. Maybe you choose to invest. Maybe you choose just to be a raving fan. But Dan is a serial entrepreneur that brings track record. So Dan, thank you for being here in the studio, all the way from Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
And I heard bits and pieces of your story up to this point, just because you were on our other show, did an exceptional job on What's on Your Napkin. And you said serial entrepreneur, which means that you've been building on previous successes, maybe even previous failures, to get to this really interesting point in your career right now, where you've stepped into fintech. I want to talk about that in a bit. What was your first venture? What was your entree into entrepreneurship?
So I always had a side hustle, and when I was in my young 20s, I wanted to be a TV producer. That was my dream job. And unfortunately, I was able to get there. I was producing TV shows, national, local.
Cool.
And then 2007, 2008 happened. There was kind of a financial meltdown, and I saw, kind of my career take a hit. And at that point, I decided, okay, I'm done trading time for money. So I went out and, I had some side hustles. I was selling products on eBay and doing, buying stuff in China and bringing it in and just kind of whatever, figuring out how eBay and Amazon works. And I just decided I want to. So I was a little worried, like after, that kind of the whole production thing. So I went out and I actually had a job offer, a really good job offer as a publicist for a book company. And I said, I'm going to bet on myself. And it was scary because at this time, like I was on the verge of bankruptcy, and it was a really tough time. And I said, I'm gonna bet on myself. And for a year, I hustled. I worked every weekend. I took anything that came my way. I said yes. People say, hey, what do you do? Anything for $1. So, and that kind of evolved into products. And so I learned I mastered Amazon, mastered eBay, and started doing a lot of international trade. At one point had a consultancy in China, and it just kind of grew from there, and a complete departure from fintech and where I'm at now. But I learned some lessons, some valuable lessons building those types of businesses that has enabled success in what I'm doing now.
That's awesome. So take us back to that moment though. You're on the brink of bankruptcy, not a function of anything that you did wrong. It's a function of just a sequence of events in the world that led to that moment. How did you go from there, which is dark, despair, it's lonely, maybe you took it even personally, you're like, oh my gosh, I don't have what it takes. How'd you go from there, lifting yourself up, dusting yourself off, and then building a pretty successful next venture, which then parlays into what you're doing now? How'd you go from there? And the reason I'm asking this is so many entrepreneurs, they stop there. They're like, I just don't have what it takes. They go down the route of being an employee, or worse off, they go down the route of being depressed or even suicidal. How'd you go from that moment?
It's scary, and I love that, like in your personal story, you talk about freedom, and that's what I realized, is I didn't have the freedom that I wanted. I was sitting in bed one evening and just thinking, what am I going to do? Like my wife was amazing. She would just she was there, didn't question me, at all. So having that support system really gave me the ability to build off of something. And I remember sitting in bed, and we had a newborn daughter. So I think she was maybe 7 months, something like that. And I looked over, and because I literally was about to lose my house, and I sold all my camera equipment and everything else just to make ends meet, and this was it. And I remember just looking over and saying, hey, even if we're on the street, like that's okay. I've got a family, and I'm happy. I'm a dad. And from there, that kind of, I think in a lot of ways, it changed my entire way of seeing life, and I was kind of on this quest to build financial independence and to build freedom and to get to that point where I never had to experience those feelings again. And so it was, that was maybe one of the rock bottoms that I hit, my first rock bottom. There's been many. And that really just kind of launched me into this mode of I need to be in more control. And as a freelance TV producer, I didn't have enough control. And so from there, I just, I took any idea that came along, and I ran with 3 or 4, and suddenly one, turned into a multi-million-dollar business. I was able to sell it, and in doing that, it opened up other opportunities where, in running those businesses, I realized, there's a lot of problems selling on Amazon. There's a lot of problems with logistics. There's a lot of problems with sourcing in China. And so as I was solving my own problems, I realized I can also solve other businesses' problems. And so I'd say more than anything, it was just staying curious and always looking around and finding what's the next opportunity.
Really interesting. So what's your singularity? Like what is your skill set? What's your flame? Like what are you best at? Like, this is my domain, don't even touch it. What is that for you?
I love marketing.
Awesome.
I love finding that product market fit, finding the story that resonates. And there is with everything. And I think especially now more than ever, people are looking to buy a story. They don't want to buy just a jacket. They want to buy a jacket that was made by, Giovanni in Italy or something like that. They want to know the story behind something. So I think we're looking more for experiences, and that's what marketing delivers to me. And take something cold and stale and boring like 401k, fintech or just financial services, and how do we make that a story? How do we make it personal? And so for me, I'm a marketer, and every day I live and breathe marketing. I love go-to-market strategy. I love pricing. I love the psychology that goes into it.
So speaking to with marketing, because this is one of the things we talk about with all of our founders and NASDAQ, it's just such a valuable lesson for you to learn. What do you do when it doesn't work? So you put together the story and the whole strategy, it doesn't work. How do you pivot? How do you iterate? How do you let go of something that you may have really believed was a thesis that had so much potential, and then go down a route which ultimately gets you to where you want to get to? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, it's about preparing for failure.
Yeah. And
so having that, kind of the whole failure, safety net process in place. And it's about executing quickly. So, kind of there's in development, they talk about Scrum and kind of like these 2-week iteration cycles and everything. I approach marketing the same way. It's like I want to figure out in 2 weeks whether I'm onto something or whether I need to pivot. And so it's about having as many experiments, and I'm going to have 1,000 failures before I find that one thing that works as a marketer. So just like in sales, it's about knocking doors. It's a numbers thing. And over the time, you're pivoting the message. You're finding what works, you're finding what doesn't, you're understanding your audience, and oftentimes you go into something, and this happened with what I'm doing right now with 401 Go. I went in to solve one problem and found out that there's something entirely different that I didn't even see.
Wow.
And so it resulted in a massive pivot. And that's only because I was in the trenches, doing things, talking to customers, and just living it day to day. So, burning up the phones and just being there. Like, that's the only way you're going to know is I had an idea of what the market was like and what it wanted. But then once I got in the market, I found out there's something completely different. And again, it's being curious, just wanting to know and asking questions and really, genuinely caring about providing a solution.
And you bring up a valid point, like you were in the trenches, right? Like with my first tech company ever, I did customer support for 18 months as an avatar. So I created this fake identity for myself. And the reason I did it though was because to me that was marketing. I'm now going to understand exactly how end users are using the platform, what they wish they could do that they can't do, where they're getting stuck, what kind of messaging worked to pull them in, what messaging keeps them there. That was being in the trenches. So now you had this pivot to what you're doing today, right? Fintech, totally different than anything else that you've previously done. The 401k industry, you said before you're democratizing finance, which just speaks into my listening, because I just want to democratize everything. How did you even get to that point? Like pivoting from being on Amazon and eBay and finding inefficiencies, selling your business, like completely resurrecting your life as a result also, to now going after a fintech play. Speak into that journey.
So at one point I had about a dozen different businesses, and the first time I went to go set up a 401k, or I was interested in it, was honestly because this was very early into my kind of entrepreneurial experience, and I was writing bigger checks to Uncle Sam than I was distribution checks to myself. So I'm like, there's got to be a better way. I was maxing out my IRA, and so I was trying to find a way to be able to put more towards retirement in a tax shelter like a 401k. And I went to explore the options, and there just weren't any. It was like, I can't do this. Fast forward a few years later, and now kind of my mindset had shifted a little bit. I really value teams, and saw kind of the team, these employees more as family and as coworkers. And I wanted to offer a benefit that made them feel like family, that showed I really cared. And so that was kind of the second time that I went to look at setting up a 401k. And in that process, I just realized this is a nightmare. Like this is, I learned how complex it was, and I'm like, okay, that's why small businesses don't have this, is because of how messy and complex it is. And at the time, we were doing. We had kind of a global, e-commerce and wholesale distribution platform, very complicated. And seeing what we had done in that space, I'm like, that's got to be able to translate over to the finance space. And so we went out and hired a consultant and said, here's our idea. And he basically told us, yeah, you're crazy. That can't be done. And so we paid him to tell us why it couldn't be done. And within like a month, he's like, this is amazing. I want to jump in. He became a co-founder. So that's really kind of the course of it. And again, I think a lot of that stems back to even my personal experience being on the verge of bankruptcy and just kind of realizing like money really matters. And so democratizing finance, the way that we kind of moved into that space is initially, we were focused on solving problems that happen around the boardroom table. So the challenges for small businesses. And now we're focused on solving problems that come up around the dining room table. And so it's about and that's the powerful thing about the 401k is that the people that need the most help when it comes to finance are the ones that aren't looking for it. It's that young 20-something that gets their first job and they don't understand the power of compounding returns. And they're going to experience that through the 401k if we can make it a good product.
For sure.
And that's how we're democratizing finance. We're bringing it to people that aren't looking for it. Awesome. And with the 401k, they're 15 times more likely to save for retirement than if they are on their own.
So as the marketer, how do you reach them? Like, what's the story that you're telling to Mary, who just graduated from University of Miami, gets her first job in marketing, she's making $72,000 a year. What's the story you're telling her around compounding interest, 401k, having a plan for retirement? How do you make that sexy? How do you make that interesting?
It's tough, and a lot of it so from a product standpoint, it's kind of our mission statement. Number one, we don't even call it retirement because I think that very definition is completely different. My dad retired at 65 and that meant I'm done working. For me, I don't think I'll ever retire. And then I talk to some kids that are in their 20s that are like, I want to be done working at 40. And so everybody's like term of retirement is different. So we talk about financial independence.
That's awesome.
And the first part of our statement is we can't. It doesn't matter what tools we build. It doesn't matter how amazing they are. It doesn't matter what those returns are if we can't ignite that desire. And so how do we do that? How do we get somebody that is not thinking about finance or it's passive thinking about it? So we use the 401k as kind of our way of reaching them. And so really our customer is the small business owner. And the challenge is they get up in the morning and they're not thinking about a 401k. They're thinking about everything that's coming up. They're thinking about the new hire or the person they have to let go. They're thinking about that big contract that they're chasing. And so it's getting to a market that doesn't, and it's never been on their radar because they know, hey, that's a benefit. That's a benefit reserved for like corporations with 100 plus employees and an HR team. So that's our big challenge is getting in front of them. And that's where we really, we're about partnerships. Number one, financial advisors, we believe that, you can have all the tech in the world, but when it comes to saving behaviors, when it comes to investing and those types of things, it's scary. People need somebody to talk to. So we had to build tech that wasn't just integrated with different platforms, it had to work with people. So high tech, high touch. But then in terms of distribution, you've had small businesses, and what typically happens is you kind of you jump into this wild, crazy idea. A few months into it, you're like, this is working. One of the first people that businesses go out to for help or as an advisor is it's a bookkeeper, a CPA, or somebody kind of in that space, and they're not typically at all associated with 401ks. If you ask them, hey, what do I do for a 401k? They're like, I don't know, let me refer you to somebody. And so we're using them as kind of our front line. So we're going to them and saying, hey, you guys are on the front line of small business. This is a solution. It takes 15 minutes to set up. It's not this complicated 8-week process in the past. And it's just a matter of, giving somebody our info, sending them a link, and they're signed up and going. And so we've had to build our own distribution network, but they're excited, they're hungry because they see this as a need.
How did you get there, right? Going from 8-week setup process to 15 minutes. That's such a disruption. I so love that. It lights me up. How did you get there?
I honestly think it's because we had, my brother and I, we've been in business before and we had no experience in the industry. So I think it's in many ways it's ignorance. It's the ignorance to believe in something because again, we kept hearing over and over again, you can't do it. And rather than let that demoralize us, we had to figure out why. And so it was a long, complicated, messy process. We looked at all the existing technology that was out there. We read IRS code, that's exciting. And basically just tore it down to, and almost in a way, just operated like the industry didn't exist. And said, okay, if we're gonna build something for today, what does that look like? And that's what's so revolutionary. The financial products we have now, these are insurance giants that have been around since the 1800s. And the financial products, largely, once they're in place, like, they never change. They might get some automation here or there, but we approached it the same way. And a lot of people, they look at our pricing model and they say, how do you make money? And when we were in the product and the kind of the e-commerce space, big portions of our business, we were making pennies on these transactions. So like our gross margin was 3%. So I had to figure out how to have a lot of automation, a lot of technology to empower that. And so in an industry that typically relies on rooms full of people that are using spreadsheets, we just brought tech. Like the financial industry, I'm shocked as I've gotten into it, is very outdated, very backward, very slow to adopt technology. So honestly, I think the bar's set kind of low.
That's awesome. So where are you at now? So you obviously exist, you have a team. How big is the team? What kind of businesses are you supporting? And what are you most proud of? I'll answer that one last. Like, speak into where you are now, what you're most proud of about this journey so far.
So we have about 18 employees right now. For the first few years, we bootstrapped it, really worked on building a platform. So we had some competitors that rushed out there and basically found customers and then built a product for those customers. We had kind of a different approach. We wanted to really build a solid product and then go find customers. And we were about ready to launch kind of the first of 2020, then COVID happened, and we're like, hey, this is an opportunity. Let's just buckle down and keep, enhancing the platform, building more automation. And so really, it was kind of last year that was our growth year. We started with fewer than 100 businesses using our platform. We now have over 600. So we had really explosive growth, and the cool thing is it's been all organic. I've done nothing more than tell our story. We're not paying for advertising. We're not doing any outbound or cold sales or anything like that. It's just there's enough pent up demand in the industry, and that's a huge signal for us. That all I've got to do is find those marketing mix that's going to just give us that growth and that leverage to grow even faster. And so we've really grown a lot within the last year. We brought on some venture capital last year, and that kind of gave us the ability to scale and build out the team. And honestly, like, that's the thing that I'm most proud of, is our team and investors. In previous businesses, they were bootstrapped. I was the investor. If at the end of the day, I'm like, hey, it's been a long day, I want to go home, I didn't feel responsible to anybody. And it took some time to get there, but now that we have investors, and these investors, I've given our pitch hundreds of times, and I believe in this. And then you find somebody, and I remember the first time when we had our first investors, and they said, this is a multi-billion-dollar opportunity. Like, I wanted to cry, because somebody else validated this idea. And I remember after the call, they're like, we want to invest, and they gave us their term sheet after the call. Like, that's all I wanted. Like, did you hear them? They said it's a multi-billion-dollar opportunity. And so having that validation is huge. And then we go out and we're hiring talent, and we're attracting, engineers from some of these, from Microsoft, from Zillow, from amazing talent that are taking pay cuts to come work for us. And it's because of the story. And so every night, I go to bed and I think of all these people and their families, the investors and their money and everything else that are really, that believe in the story, that believe in this vision. And it's scary. I mean, to be honest, I've never had like this. I've been through a lot of businesses, and I've been through the ring a number of times. Right? This is so.
There's so much on the line though, too, right? And I'm not trying to make it scarier, but I'm also trying to just acknowledge you, because you brother committed to something that you have no experience in. Like, you have no right to be here, yet you're here, and you've earned the right because you said, no, something. If this is how the industry is, we have to disrupt it. We have to create financial independence for people. Because you were at a point, it probably wasn't even that long ago, it was a handful of years ago, at the bottom of the bottom. Like, new baby, like, running out of resources, like, lose your home. Yet, in your mind, you have it all, because you did. You had your family. And then you committed to really having it all. And then also providing that to other people in your team and just users. I mean, think about these businesses that are on this platform. The fact that they're going to be set up right because you took the responsibility to build a solution that didn't exist for them, in service of them. It's really, truly remarkable. What's your vision from here?
So for us, it's much more than just the 401k, which is, in the industry, it's all about the products. And the reason you get a financial advisor is they help you pick the products. And for us, it's about freedom. It's about financial independence. And so it doesn't stop with just the 401k. We're working on IRAs, we're working on HSAs. We know we need to have other investment platforms, and it has to be proactive. It's got to be something, a phone in your pocket that, when you go into Starbucks and you swipe your card, it pops up a little prompt because we're connected to your bank, and it says, hey, did you know there's a coffee shop that's better rated? And it's like, 50% less expensive down the street. This will save you, $2,000 a year, whatever. It's those active insights that we can deliver and get people who aren't thinking about finance thinking about finance.
That's so cool.
And we've seen that happen. I've had personal stories of, one of the companies that I own was the first we put on the platform, and employees that have come back, a few years later, excited to talk about their 401k because they saw it grow from like a couple $100s to, several $100, and they want to know what's next. And so that's what we're doing is we're using the 401k, we're using the employer to kind of get that spark, and then it's our job to keep them excited about it,
awesome.
To keep them thinking, to change their perspective on the way money works and get their money working for them instead of them working for their money.
So I meet a lot of people, and not a lot of them inspire me, and you have. And I could just tell how much you care. Mm-hmm. That's what it is. The depth of caring within you is so palpable that I never lose that. Because that's why you've made it this far. That's why you withstood COVID. That's why you withstood bankruptcy. That's why you're going to create this multi-billion-dollar company that produces trillions of dollars. Because when you hit that benchmark, you've produced trillions of dollars of financial independence for all the businesses and the people on the platform. I acknowledge you. Speak to the NASDAQ audience. How can they learn more? How do they get involved? What are the next steps?
So any small business, and we're talking employees from, headcounts from 1, our sweet spot's really from 1 to about 150. Again, nobody thinks that they can offer a 401k, and they can. And right now, with the job market as tight as it is, that's one of the best ways to attract and retain talent is offer benefits that show you really care. And there's nothing like, 401k, when you're thinking of somebody's retirement, that's far off in the future when, that employee is no longer working for you. And when you're showing that level of care, that attracts a whole new level of talent. So just like 401go.com, I kind of, it's a love-hate a little bit with the name and everything else, but it's easy, 401go. So you can go there to learn more. And it's super simple. You can be set up in a matter of 15 minutes. We took something that's complex and messy, and we boiled it down into an automated, simple process.
It's awesome. I congratulate you for making it to this point. You're just warming up. The impact is just so real already, and that's why I brought Dan to you. I brought Dan to our NASDAQ community so that you could see disruption. You could see two men that came together, two brothers that said, I don't care if this is how it is. We're going to change. We're going to create what will be. Because financial independence is something that every person on the planet deserves to experience. And if this is the hook, this is the way we get them started, and then from there there's all other products that get built on this platform over time, that we are on our way to get there. I appreciate you for being here. Please make sure, check it out, 401go.com. Check it out. Find a way to integrate this into your business. Let your employees know that you care, because you do care, and this is a perfect way to deliver on that. All right, we'll see you on the next episode.